G'day, gorgeous. Welcome in. Take a seat, get cozy. My name's Django. Welcome to my show.
Hello. Welcome to my show. We do a lot of things, we have a lot of fun. Welcome to my show.
Today's episode is an indie game showcase.
Now, in the world of gaming, this time of year is pretty quiet usually in terms of AAA releases. But I know gamers. You're probably sitting there just after a Steam sale with a freshly stacked library of games, sitting there thinking, I got nothing to play. Why aren't games any fun anymore?
We're bored! We don't want to be bored! We want to have fun!
You know, so you trudge back to Counter-Strike, TF2. But you know what I think you need? A change. Different experience. Play something new. I find that we can kind of get locked into just playing AAA releases sometimes, and whenever we look at the calendar, we see Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, and we can kind of feel a little bit restricted or feel a little bit claustrophobic by feeling like these big game companies aren't giving us new things or new experiences. And it feels like we're just playing the same game over and over and over again. But I think if we look into the indie game space, there's a lot of diversity and different kind of mechanics that we won't see out of a game from Ubisoft or EA or Activision Blizzard or something like that. And I think that's where you can kind of get that gaming sensation you've been chasing. I'm kind of getting sick of us gamers asking these big money-hungry corporations to make games with passion and care like they used to. I mean, these businesses are just too large for that. There's too many voices in the room. That's where I think the indie game space is a little bit more versatile. They can just have an idea and run with it. They don't have any investors over the top of them being like, nah, that's a little bit bold. We don't think you'll have an audience for that. Because what are the investors really going to know about the audience? They are required to make money. And so they will cater their games to fit the profile they've already made for their gamers. Put that rant back in the bottle where it came from, okay? Sorry about that. Let's continue. This is the first video in a series I'm trying to put together where we take a bit of a deeper dive into some of the indie spaces and game experiences that you might not have heard of or even considered before. And also just take the time to try and figure out why we as gamers don't value these experiences as much, or why it's so hard for independent game developers to get so much traction. Now, I know that indie games aren't for everyone. However, I feel that the independent game space is unrestricted by the AAA game trends that we tend to see pop up over and over and over again. And this leads to games with unique game mechanics and design and novel art direction and ideas that we kind of go outside of the norm. This could be exactly the type of change of pace that you need to break out of your nothing fills me with satisfaction in gaming anymore problem that you might be having. Anyway, let's check out a couple of them. Sons of Valhalla is a real-time tactical strategy game with base building elements. I know Norse games are all the rage right now, and so it kind of feels like, alright, pick another mythology now. There's a lot of good ones we haven't covered yet. This Norse fanboy ain't complaining. Especially with this absolutely gorgeous pixel art depiction of the Viking Age of Britain. I mean, look at this. The weather as well. Whew. You start out your pillaging journey by taking over an outpost, constructing a mead hall, a fishing hut, and some barracks. Once you have enough vision resources to recruit soldiers, you can amass an army to defend your gate while you prepare to march and take over the neutral town in the center of the map. The novel idea to this troop management is that you give commands by holding Q to bring up options that you can shout to your nearby units to either attack, retreat, follow, or hold position. While spitting commands all over the battlefield, you're also armed with a sword, shield, and a ranged weapon. It should be noted that you're quite a bit more powerful than your brothers in arms, capable of wiping out the first line of troops before you then need to retreat back to your shieldy boys, and then press on again. Knowing when to fight and when to retreat became the most important decision I had to make on the battlefield. When you retreat back to the base, you can use the resources you pillaged from your little outing to upgrade your buildings, expand your settlement, stock up on healing supplies, and recruit more units before heading out for your next attack. At first I thought this game was extremely pretty, with its day and night cycle and weather system, but the combat felt a little clunky and basic. Yes, at first I may have kept sending my Viking brothers to their certain death, but eventually I started to get the pace of the game and it was clicking with me. I started to notice the wave-like structure of combat as you navigated left and right on the map, trying to keep up the pressure, while also not wanting to overextend yourself and get the whole group slaughtered. Steam doesn't list a release date yet, however its Kickstarter page estimates a December 22 arrival, so expect it sometime in the holiday season or maybe early next year. Now, here we go. Something to get my adrenaline pumping. See, my love of games started when my dad brought home a PS2, as a DVD player, but it was packaged with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. This was my entry into video games. Look at me now, Dad. So I was pretty excited when I stumbled across this hoverboard-based arena shooter called Trickshot. This is another game from a first-time game development team, and while this pre-alpha was in a pretty rocky state, the general hook of the game was quite solid. Combine the combo building trick chains of Tony Hawk with the arena-based combat of something like Halo, where you're going after these pickups of weird space weapons. Although, why would anyone use anything besides the bazooka and shotty though? Boop. 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 You're dead, Dolores. You're so dead. You're so dead, Dolores. It's too easy. See, the premise is pretty simple. Do tricks to build up combo multipliers, frag enemies to cash in the points. Have the most points at the end of the round, and congratulations, you win. I'm a sucker for games with deep movement mechanics and where you have almost limitless control in your movement. You have your boosts, grinds, crouch slides, wall jumping, running, air dashes. The momentum builds up pretty fast. Before you know it, it's turned into a high-speed jousting match. I can't tell you how good it feels to chase down an enemy while doing kick flips and grinds before tackling them down and cashing in that combo. This was a pre-alpha build and I got to admit my setup struggled to keep up with the pace of the game. I hope that this game gradually becomes a bit more optimized, adds more maps, and finds itself a competitive community. I could see myself jumping in for some matches every now and then when this launches in 2023. Hopefully this one can gain a pretty healthy player base. This could be a good candidate to go free to play so they can get people through the door. I don't know, it could be a similar story to Splitgate, if they stick the landing. No? Okay. When I first got my hands on Slay the Spire, I couldn't get enough of building different types of decks and making boss runs. However, it's been a couple of years and I feel like I've played 20 other games that have innovated on that premise. Although, after I played Inscription, my standards for these games are, let's say, a little higher. So here I am, pretty nice and full on my roguelike deck building games, and then I see...
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing.
Okay, so on the surface, pretty typical roguelike deck builder. Start with a basic deck, defeat enemies, add new cards, and then progress through a map of shops, battles, rest sites, and boss fights. However, this is Battle of the Bands, baby. Assemble your rockers and shred through your enemies with sick riffs. The real hook of this game comes down to its bandmate selection. It feels like they took the party-based RPG gameplay of something like Darkest Dungeon and combined that with the deck building mechanics of Slay the Spire. In Slay the Spire, you tend to specialize your deck over the course of a run, and the cards you choose should kind of fit into your character's archetype. Here in Power Chord, however, you got 4 characters with cards you got to balance, making that deck building, decision making process a little bit more complicated. Finding new synergies between the characters with new cards that I was requiring was kind of the hook that made me keep playing this demo. Can't wait to see this one be fleshed out a bit more. I'd love to see more visual variety further on into their runs and hopefully some unique boss fights. There's no release date that I could find on the Steam page, but hopefully this is late this year, maybe next year. But yeah, this game's just vibey and rocky as hell. This game just rocks. Alright class, settle down. Everyone take a seat. Professor's trying to speak. Okay, get Billy up the back. Shut it. Alright. Yeah, good. Well class, today we're going to be covering something that everyone's been looking forward to. How the Australian government sent our Prime Minister on a covert mission to uncover Atlantis. Oh, what? What's that? Mandatory diversity seminar? Can't this wait for next year? The kids are really excited for this topic. Alright, fine. Seriously? Right after the blizzard? Oh, okay, it's fine. Well, alright kids, sorry, we'll have to wait for another day.
Content warning. Harassment, misogyny. Professor Django would like the class to be aware that he is not against the implementation of diversity seminars and quotas in the workplace. His bitterness towards them instead stems from a deep internal frustration that these actions seem to often be the only actions taken to diversify the environment and often instead lead to corporate tokenization of minority groups without actually taking on feedback concerning the necessary organizational changes that these communities propose.
Today, let's learn about diversity. See, if you trace the modern games industry back to its origin, you'll find Silicon Valley tech bros. Actually, the original Silicon Valley tech bros, Atari. Working at Atari was the dream. Hot tubs, day drinking, and creative freedom. It was a different time, I think. For a while, the people creating games tended to fit a certain demographic. However, the people playing and consuming the games were typically families and early tech adopters. It wasn't really until the video game market crash of the 80s, and also Nintendo launching the NES into the toy aisle rather than typically the tech aisle as it was before. It wasn't until this point that the gender split really took over in gaming. See, over the 80s, the toy aisle became more and more divided into a boys section and a girls section, pink and blue. When Nintendo made the decision to market the NES as a toy rather than a tech item, they had to decide whether to put it in the boys aisle or the girls aisle. They came to the conclusion that their product was easier marketed towards the boys, hanging out in the arcades, Stranger Thing vibes. Fast forward to me getting into gaming. Thanks, Tony. See, I started with racing games, platformers, party games, etc. Until along came the Xbox 360 and the reign of the shooter. It was this point for me that games started to feel a little samey. The game's characters and stories from these games made by AAA studios leaned into the theme of macho man with big gun takes down 1,000 people, but yet somehow is still the good guy. It was the same gameplay of working your way through shooting galleries and set pieces that gradually dumped exposition from your mid-30s mercenary type soldier dude with a heart of gold. Now, I'm not saying that any of these games are bad games. Actually, kids, all of these games are on the mandatory gaming list for this semester's curriculum, alright? Make sure to get your parents to get it from the bookstore or the game store. Well, we used to have a GameStop, but everyone pumped and dumped that shit. Now they're doing NFTs. They're not bad games. In fact, they're some of the best games ever made. It's just after a decade of these same games over and over again, I'm starting to feel like I need something new and different. All of these games were making bank off these successful formulas for a AAA game, and it put them in a position where innovating game design became an investment risk rather than a selling point. These companies have figured out that Far Cry 3 can sell, so goddamn you're going to get 300 Far Cry games. Why should they innovate on what already works, when it has the risk of alienating the fans, the previous games? Why would a game company create a new IP when they know that their pre-existing franchise has fans clamoring for new content to purchase? Why should they introduce new characters from diverse backgrounds and experiences, tell new stories, and take creative risks, when they know that their audience has already previously connected to these character archetypes? And furthermore, should we really be relying on these guys to bring us more diversity? They literally think you can enumerate diversity. Blizzard are trying to put diverse characters in their game like they're Pokemon. Gotta catch them all. These AAA companies are giant machines with hundreds or thousands of different voices and ideas being put out there every day. This type of work environment reduces the potential creative mobility of their staff. This environment also makes it easier to improve and iterate on the previously worked on games and concepts, rather than innovating and experimenting with new ideas. Now kids, if you want some diverse video game experiences, maybe a type of gameplay you've never seen before, or a story from a culture that you're unfamiliar with, or maybe a character that isn't just some gruff middle-aged dude with a haunted past, well, then why are you asking for it from these guys? It's like going to McDonald's for a vegan meal. Like, yeah mate, you aren't gonna have any meat, but all you're left with is just a couple of soggy fries, a couple of lettuce leaves, and a sad bag of apple slices. Maybe you should have looked anywhere else. And that anywhere else, I think it definitely needs some more love. Kids, look at the split of income for Steam sales. AAA games are 4% of the market, but they maintain 71% of the Steam revenue and active players. Compare this with 96% of the market being comprised of games from small independent developers, and they only make 30% of the total revenue. 96% of the market is competing for 30% of the players. Over half of the indie games on Steam have never made more than $4,000. The rich get richer, while the little guys get told to hustle and grind. Wow, I'm starting to sound like Bernie Sanders. 99% of the income is going to the 0.1% of the population, and this can't stand. And I like birds. My point here is that asking 4% of the market to represent more diverse experiences probably isn't the best way of pushing for change, especially when they're doing pretty well for themselves, making games the way they are. Instead, we should try to improve the marketing mechanisms of the indie space, allowing more people to try and find games that they would find appealing that otherwise would have never heard of. Also, we really need to get rid of this stupid gamer conception that indie games are less than, just because they aren't made by our corporate daddies that we continually worship. In conclusion, kids, if you want diversity in the gaming experiences that you have, try indie games. Don't ask these giant corporations to have relatable, diverse perspectives when they're doing shit like this. Diversity in this space is much more likely to be pushed through a grassroots movement of creators creating things that they just want to see in the industry, rather than a top-down approach from these giant corporations that keep messing up over and over and over again. This idea of change in the gaming industry occurring in either top-down influence or grassroots movements, I don't know, that's kind of interesting to me. It kind of wrinkles my noggin just a little bit. So if you've got any further takes on it, please include them in this week's homework, kids. Put them in the comments. And if you want diversity and safe spaces in the gaming industry, well, these giant companies should try. But that seems like more of a long-term plan. So go and support an indie dev for now. Okay. Class is over, kids. That's recess. Everyone go and enjoy yourselves. You know, kids, I actually learned to swim at the Harold Holt Swim Center. The irony kind of washed over me at that age. Huh. Was that okay? Can I go now? Hope we don't have any more interruptions like this in the future. Yeah, that's something. Let me try to describe this one in 15 seconds or less. Put timer on the clock. Okay, so it's a time-traveling story with this dude in a spaceship, and sometimes the gameplay is Katamari Damacy where you hit shit with your giant hand, and sometimes it's a Guitar Hero, and you can use a Guitar Hero controller in it if you want, and it's just kind of like whack. Okay, I don't think this game is for everyone, but I enjoyed it, and I think there's someone out there that's screaming right now, "This game was made for me!" Okay, so this one shouldn't make the list because, well, it came out 2 years ago, but there was a demo available for this during the time that DreamHack was on. After an hour with the demo, I instantly bought into the premise. I've been having a lot of fun with this one on stream lately, and it just kind of hit that Left 4 Dead spot for me. It's a co-op wave-based shooter where you play as toy soldiers in gigantic household environments. Well, it's normal household environments, but you're tiny. You activate your towers and you set up defenses such as glue traps, Lego bricks, which, yeah, good shout, turrets, mines, and other things before the wave of enemies arrives. I think the enemy variety here is the standout. I've become so used to seeing zombies, exploding zombies, running zombies, big zombies, spitting zombies, screaming zombies, glowing zombies, deaf zombies, zombies, player-controlled zombies. So you could imagine my gleeful surprise to see waves of Beyblades and paratroopers and Power Rangers with samurai swords and bouncy balls. Seriously, screw those bouncy balls. And the boss fights? Definitely not phoned in either. This game is having a bit of a comeback at the moment, going from pretty quiet launch to breaking the top 10 on Steam 2 years after its release. 2 years. This one's kind of perfect if you and your mates are looking for that chill Left 4 Dead kind of experience of the good old days. And if you can't convince your mates to join you, there's plenty of active servers with a pretty friendly community that, you know, I had a bit of fun with. Keep an eye out for this in the Steam sales. There's a console release coming next year. Get about it.
Oh, no. Do not go towards that button, please.
You cannot keep me away from that button.
What are you doing?
No.
Stay away.
You put a big red button somewhere, I'm gonna press that. Come on, can I get there faster?
I'm not sure who you are, but I just
No.
can't get to push that button.
I want to push
You
the
will.
button.
You will regret it. And even if you won't, I know I definitely
No,
will.
don't tease me with this
So stay
button. I like 3 things. 1v1 fighting games, bullet hells, and chess. Well, I guess I like a 4th thing now. This is King's Gauntlet Chess Revolution. Okay, it might look like there's a lot happening on the screen, but I'll break down how a typical game goes. Select your character, This will determine what type of projectile you use and how fast you charge up your chess pieces for you to place on the board. In the demo, you have the choice between Wukong and George. George has a long-range wand that shoots fast-firing homing bullets, and Wukong has a short-range beam that constantly fires. The trade-off here is that while George can hit more consistently from further away, he builds up charge a lot slower than Wukong. And Wukong must play around pieces for cover because he's kind of like a sitting duck with his limited range. Then he can rush down opponents, and when he hits, he charges his chess pieces a lot faster. Kind of encouraging a push and pull aggro and defense playing style. Close quarters, great. You got your fighters. Now let's load into a match and where the chess piece is at. Well, that's what your weapon's for. Start hitting the pieces and you'll build up a charge that will eventually earn different chess pieces. You start with placing pawns anywhere on the battlefield, and then over time you'll eventually earn more powerful pieces, ending up on a straight run of queens to try and wrap up the game as quick as it can, although it can last longer than expected. Once the pieces are on the board, they show the lines of their potential attacks. If an enemy crosses one of these lines, your piece will move in that direction to attack them until it can't move any farther. If your opponent gets crushed by one of the pieces, great, you win the round. Now to complicate things a little further. There are these crowns and they randomly appear on the board over the course of the game. Collect 3 crowns and you get access to a powerful ability that can capture your opponent's pieces. This then converts them into your own pieces, and this can be a deadly combo where you can kind of bait one of your enemy's pieces into going in their direction and then quickly switching it into your own pacing. Yeah. Okay, got it? Those were the facts. Now here are the feelings. This game slaps hard.
God, this game slaps!
Oof, my adrenaline starts pumping. The game slows down. Start to feel like Neo dodging bullets on the giant chessboard from the Philosopher's Stone. The amount of different strategies I found in this demo with just 2 characters was insane. You could camp behind pieces, go aggro rush, just focus on the crowns for taking over your enemy's pieces, or just try and play it as close to chess as you can. It's just so fast-paced and strategic at the same time that it managed to fully stimulate my neural cortex. Like, my brain was buzzing. Seriously, after a tense round of King's Gauntlet, my hands were shaking with adrenaline. Oh, baby. Gimme. I can't imagine how complicated all the matchups and strategies are going to be to learn when this game launches with 8 characters. And hopefully they add more after that. I've been lurking in the developers Discord and seen some of the characters that they've proposed, and I've been super impressed with all the character designs. They seem really different. Feels like everyone's going to play very, very differently to each other. Like, check out these kind of characters. Go try out the demo, wishlist it, really helps the developers, and join the Discord if you're interested for some online matches. Actually, can't wait for this one. You know how I said Starstruck probably had that fan that feels as though the game was made for them? Well, this is my one. This is my one. This game was designed for my chubby little brain. Yeah, jeez. Oof. Just thinking about this game. Like, getting itchy. Kind of like when I play Smash and everything like slows down and you get that like flow state rush. Oh. Alright, let's wrap it up.
And that's about it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I've had a lot of fun making this. It's my first video, and I'm completely new to editing and all this, so let me know how I did in the comments below. I've got a lot more to talk about in the future, so there's content coming. So subscribe and stick around. Thank you very much. Until next time.